Law enforcement officials of Reddit. What is the most obscure law you've ever had to enforce, and how did it happen? I'm a corrections officer at a state prison. I was assigned to work in the mesh hall one day. I was told by my sergeant, the inmates can take the spice cake out of the mesh hall and back to their cells, but they can't take the dollop of whipped cream that is on the spice cake. I was slightly confused and asked, so they can't take it out of the mesh hall then, or can they lick the whipped cream off? He told me they can lick it off. So there I was, standing in front of the area where the inmates turn in their feed up trays, not allowing anyone to leave with their dollop spice cake unless they licked it off. I was on the receiving end of a bizarre law. A few friends and I frequented some of the local state parks on horseback. The horse I had at the time loved to swim, and whenever we had the opportunity to ride up to the lake, I'd take him for a dip. On one excursion, a park ranger caught up to our group and everyone shouted at me to come back to shore. I get back to them and the ranger promptly hands me something. A ticket? ? I ask what on earth it was for. He stated that there is a regulation against operating a vehicle on the lake without a permit, and in said state park equine are considered a vehicle, so I got fined for boating without a valid permit, on a horse. One time my grandfather got a ticket for riding a horse without a lantern. Local cop and him weren't on good terms, and he was going to a friend's to get drunk, so he rode his horse instead of driving. On his way home, at night, he said the cop stopped him, and because he couldn't cite him for being drunk, he wrote him up for riding a horse without a lantern. Edit. So to clear some things up, keep in mind that my grandpa is 80, so this had to be about 60 years ago that this happened. I don't know what the laws were back then. Also, it was 60 years ago. Grandpa's memory can be a little bit fuzzy on the exact details, but this is a story as I heard it. My dad also attested to the fact that my grandpa did indeed get a ticket for riding a horse without a lantern. In Flossmoor, Illinois, it is a ticketable offense to park a pickup truck in front of your house. This includes parking it in your own driveway. Yeah, it is a town full of rich snobs. One rich guy loved his truck and parked it in his driveway anyway. He got a couple tickets a week, paid them anyway, and kept doing what he wanted. In New Jersey, there are very specific laws regulating the size of stop signs on ice cream trucks. I'm not a law enforcement officer, but a legislative aide for a state representative. A few weeks ago, a very angry middle-aged man called the office complaining about the ice cream truck parked down the street from his house. At first I thought he was kidding, but then he started citing NJ statute 39:4-128, laying out how big an ice cream truck's stop sign must be and how far it must extend off of the truck. I called the local police department, and after assuring them I was not a prank caller and that I did work for the senator, they said they would assign someone to the case. I got a call 2 days later saying they went down to the ice cream truck with measuring tape, and sure enough the stop sign was not regulation size. The ice cream truck was cited, fined, and given a week to get a new stop sign. I'm not sure who calls the police or their senator's office about this type of stuff, but I have a funny feeling that this angry old guy was a competing ice cream man. Had a guy who was homeless, but would sit out next to bars and squeeze baby puppies until they start yapping. The drunk people coming out of the bars would end up feeling compelled to buy the puppies from him. I responded to several calls with this guy, but he knew exactly what to say to get out of trouble. We would get animal control to respond, but he knew what to say in order to keep the puppies. We eventually just got him for illegal sale of animals. I think he's in jail now for stabbing someone too. I'm surprised no drunk person ever just beat the shit out of him, or a sober person. I was a military policeman, separated little over a year ago. I separated because of this exact reason. Because it happens all the time. I worked at a certain base at a certain location. Nothing dangerous. At the time I was an E3, scanning IDs at the main gate. Usually it just ghosting, with info on it, indicating all is good. A young kid, 16 or 17, pulls up in a small car, hands me his ID like everyone else does. He's wearing baseball outfit, with his gear in the backseat. Face is sweaty. Left arm has dirt on it. Probably baseball practice. On this instance my scanner didn't go ding. It went beep beep beep, which is bad. I look over the scanner and see that it's telling me this kid is in trouble of something. After a phone call to my supervisors, I'm told I need to arrest and detain him for pickup because he isn't allowed to be driving on the installation. Suspended license for some form of traffic violation. I ask over the phone when it expires, and to my amusement it ends on that day's date. So I obviously know this kid. He actually was coming home from baseball practice, thought he was allowed to drive today. I told my supervisors I would let him on base as long as he parks the car in the lot nearby and has someone pick him up, since it's obvious he assumed he could drive today. They agreed. I get off the phone, tell the kid to park his car in a nearby lot to talk to him. I tell him he can't be driving yet, but tomorrow he is allowed to. He was very apologetic. Nice kid. He calls his dad, who ended up being a high-ranking officer, to pick him up. As I say goodbye and walk away, my radio is going off by my supervisor's supervisor. Eval Zero Nut. You will apprehend that individual immediately. I will be en route to pick up and read him his rights. Stand by for my arrival. I felt so bad for the kid. I felt like we became friends. So I told him to get off the phone and how sorry I was that I had to do this. You could see his face. How sad he was that he is going to be in trouble with his dad now. I told him it isn't anything bad. We will work it out, I promise. Handcuffed and searched him. He was so sad. He did nothing wrong. Wasn't even on the installation yet. I was being the helpful cop to the community. Then some idiot supervisor lead thought he was being the hero of justice. Luckily though, kid was alright. Another patrol came by, heard what was happening, said he would take the kid, told me to unhandcuff him. He said I'll take the rap for this one, Evil Zero Nut, and he did just that. Kid went to his father, who yelled at the supervisor lead. They came out and thanked me later that day. Sometimes officer discretion is all it takes to form a trustful relationship with the community. In Kennesaw, Georgia, there is a law that states that all home owners must own a gun. I'm curious to hear if anyone has gotten in trouble for that one. I live there. Most definitely not enforced, and it's not like there would be a way to anyhow. I'm a former officer. I can't think of any law I enforced that was too obscure. But there is a legendary story of a colleague writing a ticket for violating the no parking zone for a hearse outside a church during a funeral. I'm sorry, you can't be dead here. I'm going to have to ask you to be dead somewhere else. Sir, are you listening? Writes fine aggressively. Lewdness. A guy was passing out porn in front of mall. He was only handing it to adults, so we couldn't get him with providing porn to a minor. I had to call the oldest supervisor we have. He's been on for 30 years, and he knew what to do. He had a similar incident in the early 90s. Buddy of mine is a cop. It's not really a dumb law situation, but he was pulling out of an intersection where he saw some high schoolers in a shoving match on the other side of the road. They immediately stopped when they saw him. The idiot kids then ran across the road up to his now parked car and tried to explain. Apparently the dumbest kids were fighting over a bag of weed that went missing. My buddy ticketed them for jaywalking when they crossed the road. A cop in my small town wrote someone a ticket for farting. A guy farted in front of the cop in line at Sonic. My friend works for the police department and the cop even showed her the ticket. I'd show up and offend myself. Military cop here. When I was stationed in Austin's Korea, I worked town patrol for about a year and a half. The Air Force has jurisdiction over all military members within a 15-mile radius outside the base. Right outside the base is the Songton district, which holds 120 plus bars and clubs within a 10-block street. Every night hundreds, sometimes over 1,000, of drunk military members act a fool down there. Every weekend it's even worse. Army, Marines, Navy, and Air Force members all go there from different bases to get drunk, and it gets fucking crazy. One night I was making my rounds through some clubs and a guy was sleeping all by himself in a booth inside a club. Our mission is force protection. Essentially we are protecting military assets, people, to continue the mission. So we attempt to wake him up. seeing as being passed out is a sign of alcohol poisoning. We just want to make sure he's okay. It took me about 5 minutes to bring this guy to consciousness. It took me sternum rubbing him with my Kevlar knuckled gloves to instill enough pain for him to wake up. He asked him to get up and to walk with us to the base so we could make sure he was getting home safely, seeing as his friends had deserted him. Mind you, we technically could have arrested him for public drunkenness right then and there, but I wasn't feeling like a dick that night. I'm more worried about him getting home without getting robbed or hurt. As me and my partner walk him back, he starts off being compliant and thanking us for looking out for him. Then he starts arguing that he's fine and wants to go drink more. No, Evan, that's out of the question. You're going home. Then he starts arguing that we must let him go to McDonald's and get some food. No, Evan, I'm not your fucking delivery man. You're going on base. They have 24-hour food spots on base. Go get some food before you go to sleep in your dorm room. Then he starts getting really pissed and froggy, pulling away from us and trying to walk faster than us up the street. Stop. You are going home and that's that. Fuck you, Price Eyes right. You're a cock holder. You hold my cock. Proceeds to whip his dick out and start pissing in the middle of the street. Okay, that's it. Put your dick away and give me your ID card. Now you're getting arrested. Surprise. Surprise. Guess who is publicly intoxicated? Provoking speech and gestures. Indecent exposure. And now underage drinking. And to think, if he had kept his mouth shut he could have got away with all of it. All because he wanted to take a nap in the club. Fun times. Korea. Fun times. Not a cop, but saw this dude get arrested for the most bizarre thing I'll ever witness. My buddies have a small cottage on a lake in western Michigan, and everyone knows you don't mess with the police on the lake because those guys can be in the water on sea deuce within like 5 minutes after you call. We are sitting out on the dock, and we saw mama duck and a line of ducklings swim past us. They get about 20 or so feet out into the lake past the dock, and this dude rolls up on a jet ski, pulls out a fucking revolver, and caps mama duck. This is a violation of like every hunting and public safety law there is. So we run up to the house and tell our parents, and the police are called. We get back down to the dock with armed dads in tow, and daddy duck is swimming out to the distraught ducklings. Just as jackass is rolling back up, my friend's dad yells something at him, and the dude, turns out he was very drunk, yells something offensive back, and bam, pops daddy duck right in front of 2 county sheriffs. They managed to arrest him without much brouhaha, but odds are that dude got hit with an amazing fine, lost his driver's license, and probably did some jail time. Honking your horn in the absence of danger. A motorcycle cop cut me off as I was entering the freeway once with no siren. I didn't recognize he was a cop as it was dark, so I slammed on my horn and he immediately pulled me over. He said that the horn was too late after the instance of danger. Got a ticket, and to tack onto that, because he smelled weed, I was handcuffed on the side of the freeway while he waited for backup to help search my vehicle. Had to stand there for nearly an hour in heels. My feet really hurt. There was no weed. Close bracket. Not a cop, but a former rumored was when I went to grad school near Amish country. BUI, buggying under the influence, is apparently a thing. It turns out that an insignificant number of Amish get drunk and then let the horse go home because it knows the way. The thing is, the horse doesn't know about stop signs, traffic signals, the speed to go, etc.